Hi everyone, Jack from Maths Forge here. In today's lesson, we're going to be doing decimal division. So let's take a look at our first example. We have 3.2 divided by 0.8. So I'm going to go ahead and write this down as a fraction. 3.2 over 0.8. And it's the number on the left, that is the numerator. And the number on the right is the denominator. Now, once you write it out as a fraction, you can go ahead and do this following technique that will help you get the final answer. Ask yourselves, what can we multiply to this 3.2 to get it to be a whole number without the decimal point? Well, in this case, it's multiplied by 10. And it just so happens that the same has to be done to the denominator. It's multiplied by 10. And if we actually do this calculation, we end up with 32 divided by 8. Now, because you've kept the fraction equivalent, when you go ahead and do this division here, 32 divided by 8, it should give you your final answer directly. So 32 divided by 8, if you know your 8 times tables, what can you multiply by 8 to get to 32? The answer is 4. 32 divided by 8 is 4. And this should be our final answer. And if we just check it out, there we go. So the key here is to take your division, to write it out as a fraction, and to ask yourself the question, what can I multiply by the numerator and denominator to get them to be both whole numbers? And in this case, it was times 10. Let's take a look at a 2-star example. So we have 1.4 over 2, or 1.4 divided by 2. Now ask yourself the question, what can I multiply by the numerator to get it to be a whole number? Well, it's times 10. And the denominator is already a whole number, but in order to keep the fraction equivalent, you have to apply this times 10 to the denominator as well. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Times 10 times 10. So now we have 14, because 1.4 times 10 is 14, over 2 times 10, which is 20. And now we have 14 over 20 as a fraction. And if we go ahead and simplify this in the following way, so I'm going to divide by 2, and I'm going to divide by 2. So we end up with 7 over 10. And now 7 over 10, if you know your place values, should give us 0.7. And if we just check our answer, there it is. So again, like the 1-star example, we arrange the division into a fraction, and then we ask ourselves, okay, what can we multiply by the numerator or the denominator to get it to be a whole number? In this case, the numerator is the only number that was not a whole number, and we had to multiply it by 10. The same has to be applied to the denominator to keep the fraction equivalent. And by keeping the fraction equivalent, you can just go ahead and calculate the final answer directly without any need to manipulate it further, apart from the simplification here. Let's do another 2-star example. So we have 7.2 divided by 8. So I'm going to write it down as a fraction, 7.2 divided by 8. And we need to multiply the numerator by 10 to get it to be a whole number. So it's going to be 72. And the denominator, we have to apply the same multiplication in order to keep the fraction equivalent. So now we're going to have 72 over 80. And now we can simplify this by finding the largest number you can divide into 72 and 80. So we're going to simplify it to an equivalent fraction. And that's going to be divided by 8, divided by 8. And of course, I know my 8 times tables, 72 is in my 8 times tables, and 80 is in my 8 times tables. So dividing by 8 will be the quickest way to do it. And now we have 72 divided by 8, which is 9, over 80 divided by 8, which is 10. And again, if you know your place value, how to multiply and divide by 10, 9 divided by 10, 9 over 10, is equal to 0.9. And if we go ahead and check our answer, there it is. Now let's go ahead and do a 3-star example. So we have 0.15 divided by 0.5. So I'm going to write this down as a fraction, 0.15 over 0.5. And now what do I need to multiply to my numerator to get it to be a whole number? Well, it's not times 10 anymore. If you multiply it by 10, the digits will only go one place to the left. We need them to move 2 places to the left so that this 5 passes this decimal point. So we actually need to multiply it by 100. And when you look at the denominator, even though it only needs to be multiplied by 10 to get it to be a whole number, to keep the fraction equivalent, whatever you do to the top, you have to do to the bottom. So we're going to have to multiply the denominator by 100 as well. Even though that just by multiplying by 10, it will give us a whole number, we have to do the times 100 since we've done this to the top. And the top number, the numerator, definitely requires a multiplication by 100. So let's see what this gives us. It's going to give us 15 on top. And for the denominator on the bottom, it's going to give us, so times 10 is 5, times another 10 is 50. And now we have 15 over 50. And we can definitely simplify this. The largest number that divides into 15 and 50 is 5. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Divided by 5, divided by 5. And 15 divided by 5 is 3. And 50 divided by 5 is 10. And of course, from place values, 3 divided by 10 is equal to 0.3. And if we just check our final answer, there it is. And that's it for decimal division. The thing you should really be careful about is when you do arrange them as a fraction, ask yourself that question. What do I need to multiply by the numerator and the denominator to get it to be a whole number? It's either going to be times 10, times 100, and in some cases even times 1,000. And don't forget, you have to apply this multiplication to the numerator and the denominator.